So my name's Tarquin, and I am the founder and distiller of Tarquin's Gin. I think there's might be some bottles down there. You can probably see it. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to introduce you to me and what we do down in Cornwall. So we're Southwestern Distillery, but our flagship gin is called Tarquin's. So I'm going to talk about ourselves, what we do, where we came from, and then move on to the business end of this talk, which is medals and marketing. So we'll get into a bit of marketing and sort of how best to make use of a medal win, and kind of get my opinion on whether I think it's a good idea, which I do. So I started making gin probably about 5 years ago, so I'm still quite young, but I left university, ended up working in a desk job, and I knew it definitely wasn't what I wanted to spend the next 30, 40 years doing. And I really wanted to do something creative. I'd done a cordon bleu cooking course, and I cooked in France before university in a chalet. And initially the plan was to set up a restaurant, but those restaurant plans kind of fell through, and I had that sort of crazy, wacky idea, why don't I try and set up a distillery? It might seem pretty odd, but I was really enthusiastic about flavors. I wanted to have something tangible that I could get behind and sell. I'd worked writing research on a desk. It was very abstract what I was doing before, so to be able to pick up a bottle of gin, get behind it, be proud, I knew that was something that appealed to me, and I wanted to go on this journey. Gin is also a perfect expression of flavor, so you have all these amazing botanicals and ingredients. So where I was interested in the restaurant, it was kind of the perfect transition, but rather drink rather than food. So I quit my desk job, and I wanted to set up in Cornwall. I'm from the southwest, so I left London, went back down west, and unfortunately I didn't have a big budget. I had really grand plans initially of, I wanted to buy the 100 grand still. I wanted everything. I wanted this amazing, 10,000 square foot distillery. But unfortunately, things quite don't pan out how you want, and I had to pare everything right back. And I started really small, which was a 0.7 litre still on my cooker at home. And I think that's how many great craft distillers have started over the last few years. But this was probably about 5 years ago. So I started distilling, and I distilled everything I could get my hands on. And eventually I scaled up to one of those Portuguese alembic stills, about 200, 250 litres. And I was very much self-taught. So this is the kind of, it leads quite well into medals and marketing as well. So I was a self-taught distiller. I didn't have a consultant. I didn't have anyone giving me advice. Pretty much I taught myself by reading the internet and reading, I'm sure, again, lots of you know homedistiller.org. It's probably one of the best resources for distilling on the internet. Really develop my recipe, develop what I like, and I launched in July 2013 our flagship Tarquin's Dry Gin, which looks a bit like this, but it's got a blue dripping wax instead of the red stuff. My older sister, who's a chartered accountant, she started pretty much with me as well. She got married, moved back west, and we sort of hand bottling all of this gin, which we still do. I was distilling, bottling it, and also selling it. Pretty much started out with local pubs, local retailers in Cornwall, driving around Cornwall from the boot of my car, because when I first started distilling, I obviously wasn't selling that much. So I could distill one day, sell it for the next couple of days, go back, distill again, that kind of thing. And naturally, this was back in 2013, things have grown. We've had the gin boom, and also we were one of the first guys to start doing it down in the southwest, so that everyone was pretty receptive, feedback was getting good. And we were growing, added more stills, and moved into slightly larger premises. But it's very much been a story of evolution and natural organic growth. Still, we haven't taken on any investment or anything. It's very much a kind of sustainable journey in the growth of our little distillery. So here's a nice shot of Constantine Bay. And this is it's actually, the still's called Sonara, but our first 3 stills that we started off look just like this. Again, quite unusually, we heat our stills with a direct flame. They're still sealed by dough. So a lot of the techniques we're doing are quite different to the mainstream bigger distilleries that I'd seen prior to starting. And I suppose one of the things you don't know as a self-taught distiller is whether what you're making is any good. You get the people who are going to buy it, and they'll buy a bottle because it's local. Hopefully they'll buy that second bottle. And we were getting good feedback, but how did it stand up amongst our peers? What did other people think about it in the trade? It was quite an interesting area of intrigue and curiosity to us. So we started entering spirits competitions. Our shoestring budget at the beginning of our journey obviously was quite low. And I should say, probably quite recently, we probably had our biggest success in the last few weeks. We won back-to-back Best Gin and Show at San Francisco Wild Spirits Competition 2017 for our Red Top Navy Strength Gin. And then a week later, we won Gin Foundry's Gin Smith Award, which celebrates gin producers as an all-round kind of category of medal, which is on the top right. We've picked up medals previously as well. But Nicholas Cook, Director General of the Gin Guild, actually asked me to do this talk probably about 6 months ago, which was well before we entered San Francisco. So I'm kind of, I don't know whether it's slightly alarming that he can read into the future or something like that, but he's one to look out for, certainly. So for this actual talk, medals and marketing in marketing your brand, how does a big win affect your marketing, or how should you be utilizing entering spirits competitions to grow your brand and get a return on investment? So for this talk, I'm going to cover just 3 simple areas. So one, do consumers care? Does the trade care of these medals, these little stickers that you put on your bottles? Will you sell more gin if you enter? Or what you have to do to try and sell more gin. And then finally, are they worth it? I should probably start off by saying, yes, I do think they're worth it. We have, like I said, naturally, we had a small, very, very, very small marketing budget as we started. When we started off, and in our first year, we entered 2 of the big competitions, the IWSC and San Francisco. And we saw potentially taking the gamble on that, taking a gamble on doing well, but also taking a gamble on that investment as well, because it's not necessarily that cheap. Okay, so what do consumers and what do the trade think of these medals? So first of all, for the trade, I think it's quite an important thing to think of is awareness. So who knows what the International Wine and Spirits Competition actually is? Who knows what the San Francisco Wild Spirits Competition is? Well, they're kind of self-explanatory in their title. But the people who probably do know are the trade. So I think from that perspective, the medals are probably quite good that your average barman or retailer or wine buyer or spirits buyer might be quite interested when they see that you've got a medal. It might help sway a decision, perhaps. But when it comes to the consumers, they probably never heard of these competitions. They can kind of gather what they are from the title of them. But it's not quite like, they don't really know what they're getting into. They see a bit of gold sticker on a bottle, and it might help a decision, which I think it kind of explains the survey, which I found. So Olivier from the Gin Foundry and Emile, they probably done more research into this than anyone, and I kind of stole this off their website. But basically, they asked consumers whether they pay attention to a medal in their purchasing decisions of gin. And I suppose it's quite alarming. No, it's a big 47%, and it's something, it looks quite negative on first impressions. But what, as a marketeer, what we should be looking at, you have that small 16% say yes, and you think, oh God, maybe I shouldn't be entering these competitions. But then look at that big 57%. That's the undecided people that you might be able to get an impact on those guys. So will you sell more gin? And you might do, depending on how you use the competitions. But you'll look after that 53%, those people who they might affect their purchasing decision if you have this medal. And I suppose you've got to tell them about it. That's the second step. So just won this big competition. Say I've won. I can use ourselves as an example. We won this Best Gin and Show at San Francisco, but what's the point of it? When is a win not a win? And it's not really a win if you don't tell anyone about it. So that's the first and probably most important point about a medal. So basically, you've got to spend more money. So entering a competition is an investment. It's not the world's biggest investment. Probably a few £100 per SKU. But it's very much a gamble, and you've got to be quite a bit of a risk taker to use this as a strategy in marketing. So first of all, you're taking a gamble of whether you're going to win big. And if you do win big, you then got to double down. So like a blackjack player, you get that 11. You've got to double down and go again. You need to spend more money, more investment to actually see a return on that win. So, I can give an example. We won this San Francisco medal. Obviously, first thing you do, go to a PR company. So you spend money on PR campaign, mini campaign, release. You can do it yourself to save money, but ideally you want to probably go the PR route. And then again, investment. You can spend anything from £750 for a basic release to a £20,000 campaign if you want to target national TV, national radio, or the tier 1 press. So it kind of, again, depends on your marketing budget and your overall strategy, but the point is, if you do well, you then got to spend more. Then bottle stickers, they're actually surprisingly expensive. You can, of course, incorporate the sticker into your label, but I think it looks a bit nicer stuck on. And this year, I'll probably spend 15, 20 grand on bottle stickers alone, which is, it's quite a lot. Not to mention the fact that you have to apply them as well. That takes a bit of time. Add that to the PR, add that to the entry fee, and you're probably, it's starting to rack up in terms of investment. Social media, again, promoted Facebook posts, Instagram posts. There's all scope to spend money left, right, and center when you're entering these competitions. And but of course, if you're going to enter, you've got to do this. Otherwise, it's not really that much point. You can do all sorts of things. Some wine producers increase their prices dramatically. I know there's a Cornish sparkling wine producer who does that, adds a quid onto their bottle when they win a gold at the IWSC. Or you might want to do a discount special offer. But all what we're trying to do is trying to sell more gin on the back of this big win. And it's very much, I'm trying to give an example. It's kind of a bit like entering a lottery as to whether you win. If you lose, that first investment is kind of, you can write it off. But if you win, you then got to take that secondary gamble. So it's kind of like entering a lottery to build an unfinished, a half-finished house. You're getting the foundations and the walls, but to kind of win that finished house and actually sell more stuff, you've got to put extra investment in. And again, it's quite a crowded market, so a lot of people are entering these competitions. 268 entered San Francisco this year, and there's maybe 10% win double gold medals. And then you'll have a handful of those in the UK, this sort of suits us, but lots of these people are doing the same kind of strategy. They're all going to PR companies, they're all doing press releases, so all the press are then inundated with people who've all won gold medals in this competition. Then there's a series of competitions, so probably announcing results within a month of each other. So the first 6 months of the year, all of the press get it. They're just in it, gold, 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 gold. So people can become a bit tired of it as well. So it's kind of, in that promotional spend as well, you're taking a risk that it might not even get picked up, or again, people might not care. So that's why I think the bottle stickers can be one of the most important aspects of this additional marketing spend, in the fact it might make that 53% of consumers suddenly buy your gin over one. If you're umming and ahhing over which gin to choose, you'll probably pick the one with a little gold sticker on it over the other one, or the one with the pretty wax dip, or there's lots of different things that you can add to your brand. But really, it's pretty important for small brands. That's what I think. So you're adding a key sell point to your gin in a particularly crowded marketplace. My gin is fantastic. It's a small, small batch gin made with some fantastic botanical, but it also won gold on this medal. And that's what, it's just another string to your bow, really, and probably quite important. So this is examples of some press we picked up on our big win. And this has been a lot more successful than any of our wins in the past, probably because it's just better. We've won golds, but never something this big. But like I said, we did employ a PR agency. And are they worth it? So I think for a small company like us, with a limited marketing spend, and you're looking for a good return on investment, it probably is worth it. But you've got to be a bit of a gambler. If you're an established brand, a lot of these big brands enter the competitions year on year, and they have a clutch of gold medals, but they probably don't push it as much as the smaller ones. And then relating it back to the beginning of my talk, when I mentioned the fact that I'm a self-taught distiller, I don't know what other people necessarily think about my gin, particularly from a trade perspective. My peers of distillers or industry experts, as the guys who are tasting the gin in these panels, what do they think? And it's amazing to be able to go in a stage with all of these huge big distilleries and all these fantastic brands, and get tasted blind and sort of come out on level with them and get that really positive feedback. So it's a nice kind of pat on the back as a little distiller like us down in Cornwall. But are they worth it? I mean, it very much depends on your own marketing strategy. If someone might think spending a few hundred quid on entering a competition is a lot. Someone might spend, if you don't want to spend 10 grand or 5 grand or several grand on PR or all those little bottle stickers, again, it's probably not your cup of tea. But, if you've got a bit of money to spend and you're small and you're wanting to make your name, it's probably quite a good thing to do. And a really good example of this is a fantastic gin made in Dorset called Apothecary Gin. They actually entered San Francisco last year before they even had their bottle finished, before they had their final label, and they won double gold. And they launched straight on the back of that. And initially, I think, it did wonders for their brand. They won all sorts of listings, and they're now pretty, it's a really small producer like us, but they're on their way to the fantastic things. And I think that's a key example of how it's been, medals have been a success in terms of marketing, and they still push it to this day. So a year later, lots of their social media campaigns are promoting the fact that they're double gold medal winners at San Francisco Wild Spirits competition. And while a consumer might not have heard of it, like I said, it's kind of self-explanatory in the title of what it is. It sounds fantastic, it sounds impressive, and it would probably make you, hopefully go and buy a bottle. So at the beginning of this, I said I was going to talk about medals, whether anyone finds them interesting, finds them important, whether it's worth entering the competitions. And lastly, I forgot to mention, I was also going to tell you the secret of how to win this gold medal. How do you win a double gold medal or best gin and show at these competitions? And I can relate it back to my friend Nicholas, Director General of the Gin Guild. So what you need him to do is to bless your botanicals before you distill. And seeing as he can see into the future, he'll help you win best in show, and it's double golds all round.